Marhaba and hello to all our brothers and sisters once again around the world. Dr. Jack Dempsey, American writer and historian living in Crete these days. And with me is my brother Muhammad Jihad Ismael, a Palestinian writer and historian living in Gaza, in Deir al-Balah, south of Gaza City. Today is April 15th, 2023. Situation is crisis, as it has been for 15 years. Muhammad has had no electricity for 36 hours, a day and a half now, since the latest bombing after the attacks at Al-Aqsa Mosque. There's virtually no clean water. People are trying to feed 12,000 people off of each one truck of supplies that comes into Gaza. Virtually no medicines in the hospitals. They're overcrowded, understaffed. Where is there hope? We always begin. What can I do? Well, there are three things. Contact your own government and demand changes in the policies that are either indifferent to or supportive of this horrible confinement of the Gaza Palestinian people, and demand changes that stop the support for Israeli apartheid. Second, practice BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. Do everything you can in your life as a consumer to avoid buying Israeli-made products that come from the West Bank and other occupied territories, because they are feeling it and they are worried about it. That tells us something important. Third, Muhammad and I have been trying to start a thing called Family to Family, where you get directly connected via Muhammad and his community with individual Palestinians or their families, and you, via simply using Western Union, no NGOs, no banks, can send them whatever kind of assistance you find possible for yourself. My wife and I, we sent a year's worth of canned milk while Muhammad's two beautiful daughters, Lena and Dina, were born and were first growing up and getting their start in life. You can see the results of this directly from the people you share it with. And our example is at Jack Dempsey Writer at WordPress.com. Jack Dempsey Writer at WordPress.com under Family to Family. You can see the beautiful photos of improvements that we've been able to make together, their living situation. And I know you'll find it an immensely rewarding friendship that will go on and on, as ours has for more than 2 years now. So today is, well, it's not December, but it's 15 years since what Israel called Operation Cast Lead. It was 2008, 2009. The Palestinians, it's called the Gaza Massacre, where 1,400 Palestinians were killed, including 333 children. It began with waves of F-16 jets and Apache helicopters swooping in over Gaza, dropping every kind of ordnance you can imagine. They did not allow medical personnel or media to come in and report and see what they were doing. And according to Amnesty International, there has been no justice for any of this since then. So today our subject is the psychological consequences of operations like that. There have been several since, of course. Muhammad wants to tell you about how the people are faring. They live among ruins. Many of them have, well, become ruined themselves personally, psychologically, the conditions that are enforced upon them for no discernible reason whatever. Muhammad, let me shut up now, say hello to you, and turn the floor over to you for any way you'd like to begin the discussion. You said there was an important report that just came out.
Yes, brother. Thank you so much for our new video, our new program, and thank you also for our friends who are watching us from all over the world. I agree with you. We have to ask all of the friends of the Palestinian people to buy the Palestinian olive oil. Besides that, we have to invite them to buy Gaza strawberry, because Gaza is very famous of its strawberry, and Gaza is exporting its strawberry to all the countries of Europe, European Union, and even to Japan, to South Korea. We are sending thousands of tons of strawberry each year to those countries. So
Muhammad, people can find the Gaza strawberries and Palestinian olive oil on the internet. If you look, just Google those phrases, Gaza strawberries, Palestinian olive oil, you can find it, you can order it, and wait till you taste it. It's unbelievable. And best of all, you'll be helping their farmers and their people to stay alive, literally. Muhammad, excuse me.
Of course, brother. Of course, because brother, all of those farmers are suffering, and recently they used to suffer a lot in the recent floods when the Israelis used to open the dams beside Gaza.
Yes, explain
And
that. Explain that a little bit, Mohammed. Explain the dams, where they are, and what happens when Israel opens the dams.
yeah, in fact, on the borders with Israel and with the Negev desert, we have at least two or three Israeli dams. Whenever the Israelis have floods, they directly used to open those dams without any kind of permission, without any kind of uh,
No warning.
without telling the Palestinians. Yeah,
Yes.
directly they open those dams and they make very, very hazardous action against the Palestinian agricultural lands.
And the last time they did it a couple of months ago, there were two men, an old woman, and a young boy who died in those floods. They think they're just releasing the water into the ocean. But the trouble is Gaza and its people are in the way right there on the coast. So they never seem to stop finding ways to hurt the Palestinians. It's the most sadistic thing I've ever heard. Almost.
Yes, yes, brother. So I am inviting again people to buy the Gaza strawberry in order to support those farmers and support their workers and their families. I invite them again and again.
Okay. Mohammed, it's been 15 years since Operation Cast Lead, as the Israelis call it, and since the Gaza Massacre, as the Palestinians call it. Where were you? How old were you in 2008? And what was that experience like for you? What do you remember?
In that time, I were in my last year in the college, in my fourth year in college. In that time, I were doing my homework, writing my homework, and suddenly I found that my window became maybe hundreds of fragments. My window, yeah, became maybe hundreds of very small fragments, maybe each fragment like 1 or 2 square centimeters.
And it just
And in that
exploded
time,
into your house.
exactly, of course, the window of my room exploded, and directly I used to look from the window to outside. I found columns of smoke, very, very dark smoke. And in that time, I used to remember the science fiction movies. Directly, I used to remember the Hollywood movies. It was something unbelievable. The sounds, the quantity of the smoke, and some people were shouting in my street, in my neighborhood. Maybe I were lucky because I were not harmed from the window fragments, but too much of our neighbors were injured because so many windows and doors were broken and exploded in that time. The first thing came to my imagination. I thought this is a kind of nuclear attack. It's an atomic bomb. And I asked myself, do the Iranians acquire this bomb and they used to strike Israel with it and they mistaken the target and they targeted Gaza instead of Israel? This is the same thing into my imagination. I thought it an Iranian atomic bomb. But after a few minutes, I used to open the radio in that time, and I listened the first piece of news. The radio was saying that it's a very huge air attack was implemented by 90 or 95 F-16 jets, and the speaker in radio at that time was crying. He was crying while he was speaking, and he said in big grief and sorrow, people are fragmented in the streets. We have pieces of flesh everywhere, pieces of bones everywhere, here and there. I don't know how the ambulances, how the nurses, how the doctors will gather all of this huge amounts of flesh and bones, and he was crying. It
If
was
you
a
go
big
to
shock for me and my family.
if you go to a thing called a file, or rather a page called the Empire Files at YouTube, and you look up a film by Abby Martin, a distinguished world-class journalist, she has a film called Gaza Fights for Freedom. Gaza Fights for Freedom. You can see incredible drone-based photography of how Gaza looks today. It is simply worse than anything you've seen at the end of World War II. Bombing damage and everything. And yet people are trapped in there. That 15-year period that we've chosen to begin speaking with today was the beginning of the closure of Gaza, the locking in of 2.5 million people, are half of them children, and they've been starving and dying in there since. Muhammad, I'm trying to picture for myself, I mean, the ruins of Turkey, the ruins of other places that have been stricken by natural disasters. When other countries rush in to help them, they have hope. They have a sense of hope that we are going to rebuild. We are going to be okay. Gaza has none of this. As you said, that one historian of Gaza said, there is no hope on our horizon. Look at the sky. Look at the edge of the sky. There's no one coming to save you except you and I, my friends, in the ways that we've already mentioned. So, Mohammed, there are people walking around for 15 years, growing up in these places, growing old in these places, trying to work and make a living in these places of Gaza. What do you see every day of the psychological cost of this hopeless, beaten down living of the people in Gaza? What do you see every day on the streets and when you visit friends? And tell us the kinds of things that you observe. What have been the consequences?
Yeah, brother, let me tell you that the psychological situation of the Palestinian people in Gaza is very, very bad, maybe worse than your imagination. And I think Israelis are pushing the people of Gaza to two options. The first one is to be killed by our missiles, by our tanks, by our artillery, and the other option is to get to suicide. So if we don't kill you by our weapons, you have to go by yourself and to throw yourself from high floor, or to burn yourself or take a poison. So if we don't kill you, you have only one choice, which is getting suicide. Unfortunately, these are the only two options in front of any person here in Gaza. In fact, recently, 3 weeks ago, I used to read a very, very important study. This study was done by the United Nations and other European and Western NGOs and some human rights foundations. In fact, I am so happy because I believe that the researchers who did this great work, I think they were neutral, and I think they were honest in their work. I read this study and it consists of 16 pages in Arabic language. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's available in English or in other languages or not. The study was very, very brilliant, and unfortunately was very shocking in the same time because I read terrifying numbers about the psychological situation of Gaza. I am going to tell you some numbers briefly.
Okay, before you do, Muhammad, let
The-
me ask you one quick question. Do you know the name of the organization, the name of the report, so people can look for it online? What was the organization in general that made the report? Do you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't focus on names, but of course, the most prominent foundation was the UN, United Nations.
Okay,
I think they conducted most of the effort. Beside that, I think they have some European associations and
okay,
American and Canadian. Yeah, believe me, I don't remember their names, but maybe
okay.
we can uh, mention them in the other program, in
Something
the
like
next program.
United Nations, April 2023 report on Gaza, psychological conditions. So please tell us what the numbers had to say, Mohammed.
Yeah, the study is telling us terrifying numbers. As I mentioned, it tells us that 71% of Gaza people are psychologically sick. 71% of Gaza people are psychologically sick, and they need a rapid psychological treatment. A rapid.
Including over 1 million children.
Yeah, you speak about two-thirds or more than two-thirds. You speak about 71% of Gaza people are totally sick, psychologically sick, and they need a treatment. Yeah, this is number one. Number two, 51% of West Bank people are psychologically sick. So 51 in West Bank, but 71 in Gaza. So the percentage is higher in Gaza. Yeah.
And that is driven, I'm sure, a great deal by the fact of their confinement. At least in the West Bank, there might be a little bit of a chance to move among communities, travel from your home to your job and back, although it sometimes takes 8 hours or more to get through the checkpoints. Gaza, you can go nowhere. So, if in earlier programs we've talked about when the Israelites, the first Israelites, came over the hill into the Canaanite societies, and they said, you have three options. You can leave, you can be our slaves, or you can die. And now Israel has cut off two of those options. You cannot leave, and they are never going to accept you as servants in their community, as if that's what you'd want anyway. So your option is to die. And what kind of sickness, Mohammed, is it? It's despair, no doubt. Physical injuries, amputees are everywhere, people missing limbs and with other serious injuries that you see on the streets and in friends' homes and so forth all the time. Tell me what else you observed there of the psychological costs of this 15-year confinement.
Yes, brother. Of course, you are right. The study is saying the same thing. You are right. The percentage in West Bank is fewer than Gaza because in West Bank, people there are having a better economical situation, a less unemployment rate, etc. Yeah, the 71% of Gaza people are sick with depression and frustration. Both of them, depression and frustration. Yeah, this is the first number. The second number, 36%, 36% of Gaza people are having a trouble in sleeping, a sleeping trouble. They cannot sleep. They cannot sleep, and they have eruptions in their sleep, some cuts during their night. They cannot sleep continuously. 36%. So you speak about maybe 1 million from Gaza people. They cannot sleep, and they face very bad hardship in sleeping.
That's a problem. The lack of sleep itself, more and more studies around the world are coming out about this. Lack of sleep itself will degrade you over time. You become unable to think clearly. You become depressed. You become weaker. You are not able to eat properly. The lack of sleep or broken sleep has all kinds of consequences that just keep getting worse.
Yeah, the third number, brother, 17%. 17% of Gaza people are suffering from panic attacks. Panic attacks. And they need to go as soon as possible to clinic to have a psychological medicine. They should not be living without treatment. They should take medicine because panic attack is dangerous. Panic attack may push you to commit suicide, may push you to harm others, may push you to madness. Panic
Yes.
attack is very dangerous psychological disease. So 17%, one fifth of Gaza people are suffering from panic attack. It's a very, very terrifying number, 17%.
And you can almost imagine let's say, the school children try to walk the streets to get to their daily school, and they never know what's going to come out of the sky at them. Wives and families of people who go out to work, they never know what's going to happen before the end of the day, right? It's just always this sudden. The F-16s, they come in so low over the houses that you don't even know they're coming, and then boom, they're on top of you. And at any
Yes,
time,
brother.
this can come at you. You said there was also now a rising rate of suicide. Just people saying,
Yeah.
I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, brother, let me clarify another thing, an extra thing. In
Yes.
fact, the study in the ninth page is mentioning clearly. I am going to quote the sentence. They say those 17% who are suffering from panic attack, we can describe them as candidates for suicide. Can you imagine with me the description? They are candidates for suicide because in
Meaning
any
that the
time,
chances are high that they will try to
very
end
high.
their own suffering.
Very high, brother. In a time, they might commit suicide or harm the others or take poison or do anything dangerous.
And then there are the cancer statistics. The cancer statistics are
Exactly.
very high because of all the toxins in the water, because of the remaining chemicals that come out of bombs and artillery shells and rockets and missiles. Rate of cancer is very high now, right?
Of course, brother. In Gaza, we have the highest rate of cancer all over the world. We have the highest cancer. Each week, we have 15 to 16 cases to be discovered here in Gaza. So each month we have about 60 new cases.
And
If you compare that with the number of population, 2.5 million, it's the highest rate all over the world, even higher than Africa.
yes, and it's bound to get worse because of the sheer concentration, containment, and confinement of people in that small area that are exposed to all the different toxins that cause their cancer conditions. It's bound to get nothing but worse over time until help can reach in. And that is not something Israel really wants to see happen, because then you will see the consequences of what they've been doing.
Of course, brother. Let me tell you the last number. Also, the study used to talk about the hope and the hopelessness. In fact, the study is saying that 84% of Gaza people are hopeless. They have no hope at all. They have no hope in the future, whether for themselves or for their children. They are totally hopeless.
And to build on that, if you can imagine things getting any worse, well, they do. You know why? Because the Palestinian Authority is hopelessly corrupt, and they take all the money and aid packages that come from outside to help the Palestinian ordinary people, if you'll excuse the term, and Hamas, the same thing. They are an oligarchy. They have no interest in helping their own people. And just to put an icing on the cake, I think it was what, 2 weeks ago, Mohammed, they doubled your taxes. How are people supposed to find the money to pay double taxes on the minimum of supplies and drinking water that they have to buy in the first place? How do they do it?
Exactly, brother. Exactly, brother. I agree. I agree with you totally. I agree with you, brother, of course. And let me tell you that the study is describing is describing hopelessness as a disease. So it's not a situation for mood or no, it's a disease, and they describe it or classify it as a psychological disease. So it's a very high rate. You speak about 84%. Most of Gaza people are hopeless.
And this is why, if I may, Muhammad and I implore the people who watch and listen and who are aware of these conditions, again, write to your own government to demand changes that allow this continue. Please practice BDS in your life as a consumer in order to not support Israel, but to help the Palestinian people get a hold on life any way they can. And see, imagine yourself being able to reach right in over all these barriers against their staying alive and being able to help them directly. Well, you can, and you can look up the facts of this, how it works. It's very simple, very easy, and very powerful. It's called Family to Family at jackdempseywriter.wordpress.com. jackdempseywriter@wordpress.com. And any help you send via simply Western Union, you will see directly the results that you're sending to help them. And at that page, you can see photos of the changes in Muhammad and his family's life since we've been doing this. Can't recommend it enough because there's almost no other way to reach inside and to help them. Mohammed, we have about 5 minutes left. Would you like to speak further on this portrait of Gaza as a psychologically destroyed community, and what do you recommend? Oh, I think we may have lost him because Mohammed's electricity power has been cut 36 hours now. He's been working this show on his batteries today, and maybe they too have reached a point of weakness where they can no longer send his signal. So once again, as sometimes happens with our program, this is a kind of an appropriate ending. There it is. We've lost Muhammad altogether. But let that be the proof of their dire conditions. They can't even have the resources to manage a simple 40-minute Zoom call. Please, brothers and sisters, help the people of Gaza, help the Palestinians. They have no one else to turn to in terms of the powerful of the world. So Muhammad and I, we both very sincerely want to thank you for tuning in again. Please tell your friends about this work and about the chance to directly help them in any way that you deem fit. It's that simple. We really appreciate your time in listening to this and in thinking about what can be done from here. Peace to everyone, peace based on justice.